Hey everybody, it's DH Thorne here coming at you with S. Ben Kane. It's pretty much from the Ashes Night here. And I'm subbing for the rest of Dark Sorcery tonight because there's some things that happened with some of the guys and they just weren't really able to make it tonight. But S. Ben Kane was gracious enough to join us tonight to help fill out and make a show out of everything. So we appreciate that all of you are here tonight. And so bear with us with the chat because it might be a little hard for me to keep up with the chat and monitor everything. Usually we got a couple people watching it. So, but it's really cool to see everybody. We have a couple of regular people. So hi to everybody. Kane, how's it going?
Hey guys.
We haven't had Kane on in I guess it was since March, wasn't it? Or was it April? I think it was about April since I had John.
It's been a few months. It's been a little while. It's been a minute.
Yeah. So what's new? How's everything now? You're looking good. You got a good setup tonight. Like what's you got the trinity of triangles behind you.
It's a start. I mean, there's more coming. You know, it's basic at the moment, but you know, it functions. So
I think it looks good.
Good, man. You know, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, and you got your necklace. My brain's frying, but you got the from the
triangle of eternal evocation. Yeah.
Yes.
Always. That's a part of me. It never leaves me.
So let's see. People are.
But yeah, you know, I mean, things have been awesome, man. You know, I've just got settled in my new place. Everything's set up here, ritual wise. I mean, I've got some, you know, kind of running bare bones right now, but I'm definitely looking to really filling out my temple and getting my stuff back and feeling at home again, because I have put a lot of place working with what I've been working with, and I'm really anxious to access all of my magical tools fully and utilize those energies.
And I saw when you sent me the pictures of your backyard and stuff, it looks like you're in a nice, calm, relaxing place. You can just kind of meditate in the backyard and have your tea and everything. That's pretty cool.
That is the most peaceful place. I wake up, coffee, I sit on the back porch and take care of a little business, but put a little Dead Can Dance on and really just feel my environment. I can often spend several hours out there without really realizing it.
Not many people know that name, Dead Can Dance. I'm impressed. Not many people listen to the good stuff.
Oh man, yeah. I don't see how you can miss that. Yeah, that's kind of my sanctuary every morning, and morning routine is just kind of communing with those energies and hearing the birds and the tree and just kind of starting my day off, you know. I feel fortunate to be able to do that. Not a lot of people are able to just kind of relax and enjoy the thing. It's something that I don't take for granted and fully embrace.
It's really nice because, like, I got a park that I haven't been to this year, but I had made it a habit to. It's got like about a 6 mile hike all the way around, like when you do the full loop. And I used to do that
Right.
at least twice a week. And it's Comset State Park, for those of you who are interested in going someplace that DH Thorne has been to. It's a really cool park in Long Island in New York, and it's very scenic. It's very historic. It's actually one of the places where during the Revolution they actually put they put the Loyalists who were still loyal to Britain during the end of the war when they were starting to take control away. And that was like a place where the refugees were going. It was actually kind of interesting. They have a really big mansion there. It's got an incredible view of the Long Island Sound. They got cliffs and everything there. It's definitely one of those places that if you can go to, go and find a spot and sit, you can definitely just be at such peace. I love when you can. We don't get a lot of that here in Long Island, man. Long Island's where I am. It's very much like light city everywhere, and it kind of sucks. So it's nice to get someplace like that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think it's really kind of a necessity to be able to kind of mesh with that natural earth, kind of ground yourself. Like I said, I'm fortunate to be able to do that every morning. It definitely sets the tone for my day, where I'm able to really and like I said, ground myself and kind of hit that restart button every morning where I can kind of and look at what's going on for the day, and just have that peace. Really, that's what it comes down to, is just that peace.
I know that in pretty much in most of your books, you really go out and emphasize how important it is to get out in secluded places to do things because of for various reasons. Sometimes it's dangerous for people to come along and happen across what you're doing.
That can
Dangerous,
always
of
be.
course, a relative term, but it can be at least, disruptive. I got a mosquito. I think mosquito got in my house. I guess he wants to be.
Yeah, they're out today. They were just attacking me a little bit ago when I was actually out in my backyard. I was actually talking to you, and they kept having to swat them off of me.
Well, if you guys see me doing this, I'm not completely insane, just maybe 90%. So that's what it is. So we got a lot of regulars.
I just start waving my hand too.
We should just hold a bug zapper up, just like an incenser with like a bug zapper. So we got Carrie Darkstar, we got Gypsy Autumn Storm. I don't know if I've seen. I probably have. I'm starting to lose track of some. Here we go again. See, I look like a complete lunatic, right? I should put more peppermint in here. That'll keep him away. He just flew in my eye. Let's see. Dionysus Draconis and Noelle Welding. Yes, hi Noelle. Haven't seen you in a little bit. And Kelly J. That's someone new to me as well. I'm sorry if I don't remember names too well. I've never been very good at names, but some of you guys I recognize as always being here. So thank you guys for coming.
I am so bad at remembering names. It's awful. People can introduce themselves to me, and I'll ask them again 5 seconds later what their name is. It's the worst trait.
Do you do that trick where you like say their name like a couple of times to try to get it like in? Oh, there we go. To get him. Nope, there we go. I think I got him.
I really I do the whole "Hey, how are you doing?" Thing, or "Hey, guy."
Hey, guy. Hey, dude with the hair and the eyes.
Works really great. I gotta say, the best thing to do is when you've forgotten someone's name is to ask them again, and then tell them that asking because I really care. See, that works well.
That helps.
Which is true generally. I mean, if I ask you your name, it is because I genuinely know it again if I've forgotten it. Otherwise, really.
Also, if you remember, like if you go back, I guess it would be like the 90s or whatever. It seemed like it was easier to remember the characters' names. Like when you watch an Arnold Schwarzenegger, you always like they'd say his name once or twice, but they'd say it and you'd remember it. Nowadays, like they just kind of mention the name in such a natural course of events that I don't keep track of names. Like I'll be watching a movie and it's like, who is this guy? I've been watching this movie for 2 hours. I don't know who the main character is sometimes. It's like there's something wrong with me. And I realized that some of it's just the choice of names. Like John Wick, like that's a name that you're going to remember, right? Because it's 2 syllables. It's like, John Wick, right? D.H. Thorne, one of the reasons why I chose to put there we go, freaking mosquito, every time I talk. Every time I start to talk, the mosquito goes past my head. When you have a name with like 1 or 2 syllables, it's easier to remember than when it's like a complicated, unless it's got like a word that means something, like people hear S. Ben Kane, well, that's got a certain ring to it. It's got a certain meaning to it. Same thing with Thorne and all this other stuff. It's a little easier to remember. But man, some people's names, I don't care how many times they tell me, I just say, I don't know.
Yeah, a lot of people end up either calling me Kane or Ben. Mm-hmm. Not really, but that's actually, it happens to be, the first initial of my actual given first name. But it is actually my magical name, or first initial of my magical name, which I of course don't reveal. Mm-hmm. Of course, if I'm feeling humorous, then someone might tell them that it's Sugar.
I never really tell, because for various reasons I don't want people to like track me down and dox me for one obvious reason. Doing what we do, it's not like we're bad people or anything, but there's people who would use that information to harm you, and not that I'm super paranoid. My actual first name is Daniel. That much I don't mind sharing, but I always keep the rest of everything as same with you. My name is my magical name, my public magical name, and then everything else is symbolic and private. I have sigils and things that I'll use that I don't share for things that I want to keep really private.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Right. In fact,
Yeah, I mean I think that's important though. It's something that's kind of an interest actually. Like having an actual magical name that disassociates you from your mundane ever given name is nice. It's kind of like when you enter the circle. Like I always, I talk to a lot of students, teach them that when you go into the circle, you are the master of your universe. Nothing exists outside of that circle if you were to perish. You are the magician, the one who's in the driver's seat, and you control and manipulate all as the magician in yours. So to be able to step into that circle and have your magical name is really quite potent. Like I said, between an everyday event and a magical event. So something I suggest, people to possibly incorporate within their magical practice. It might be something that adds a little bit of power or into to that situation.
I completely agree. In my book, I go an entire chapter pretty much is explained how to live a magical life, and part of that is very much getting into character. Actually, that's actually one of the subsections of that is getting into character.
Right.
And I some people don't like when I put it that way, but you kind of have to role play when you're a beginner this idea that you are the sorcerer, you are the sorceress, you are because a lot of people have a hard time with that at first that they have power, that they have authority in magic, and it's really to
Right.
me
Right.
like fundamental. Like when you put the robes on or whatever you're wearing that sets you apart when you're doing your magic, when you light your candles, when you set up your altar, you need to be invoking your god form, your authority, your whatever it is that makes you tick as a center, concentrated center of authority and
Exactly.
power. And a magical name is, I mean, that's right up there. I mean, in some ways that's more powerful than your clothing, because it's almost like a superhero. And he goes, you know, mild mannered Daniel, roving reporter. Now I'm DH Thorne. You know what I mean? And it's goofy, but it really
Right. Right.
does
Right.
help. It really does help.
It helps you step into that mind state, and that's the same thing with, it's been said that you don't need any tools at all to create, that you can actually perform the rite within your mind. Now, I give and take with that. There's a lot of, I think a scientific process. There are elements in it that are energetically very powerful and add to the rite, and you're very a lot of the times. However, a lot of the times, incense and things like this, it's almost a prop to get yourself into the mental state you need in order to perform a successful ritual. That being said, having that name for yourself and walking into that ritual chamber incorporates that and very much adds to that aspect.
Yeah, and it's good you bring up incense because there is a scientific element to incense. Not just because certain incenses. I'm going to break this down a little bit, but not just because certain incenses might have a chemical makeup that is important. And there's usually a problem with that because most incenses is just
Right.
perfume on wood at this point. Real incense, of course, the herbs, when you burn the herbs themselves, they can have a component. So, like when you're burning lavender incense, sorry guys, most of the time that's just flavored oil put on a burnable resin on the sticks and all that stuff. It's not really, really, really necessarily actual lavender. And that's easy to see if you ever buy actual lavender and burn it. But lavender has been said to have calming effects and everything, but there's actually more to it than that. When in the ancient times, we'll say, hundreds of years ago, the whole idea of like the princess giving her favorite knight a handkerchief, a scented handkerchief, was because that was almost like their idea of a photograph back then. It was almost like a video of them. And the reason for that is because our sense of smell, even though it's our weakest conscious sense, it's actually our strongest subconscious sense in terms of the physical senses.
Absolutely.
And when you smell something, your
Absolutely.
brain immediately conjures up everything associated with that smell. So, for example, you know, everybody knows the smell of a basement and where it takes them when they go into the right smelling basement. They'll be transported to, like, for me, like if I smell the right basement or the right basement smell, I'm transported to my grandfather's shop in his basement from when I was a kid.
Right.
Or
Right. Right.
if I smell a certain perfume, I instantly think of somebody. And that's exactly the effect this has. Now, so incense has a very similar effect. And um, when you build up this experience and ritual that the smell of sage or the smell of whatever is all,
Yes.
so
Yes. Yes.
this sets off that whole chain of events in your subconscious mind. It's really, we should never overlook that as like you said, science does play a role. It does play a role in everything.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Psychology of the whole situation, your and where it's at, and like you said, being transported, or your associations. My go-to is always frankincense and myrrh. It's don't use the sticks for that. I actually have the crystallized elements of that, and use the charcoals. The
The resin and
little
the charcoals.
discs. Yeah, yeah, and put that in there, and that's awesome. Like it really fills the temple with that aroma, I guess, or smell. Really takes you, and see, like you said, certain things will transport you there, and building up into certain things. That to me, instantly, I'm in that magical state of mind. It puts me right there so quickly, and I'm just tapped in. I'm ready to do the right. It gets me excited for the whole situation. Of course, it has, like I said, scientific aspects to it. Spiritual, like some people asked me the other day. Someone was asking about incense, and I was, saying different spirits, prefer different blends or whatnot, but that really it also helps. Spirits take different forms. They try to. Then I'll use a crystal ball or incorporate a crystal ball to give them the option of appearing there. I have a pendulum that I also have in case they want to communicate. And then of course incense, actually, they've used at times. I've seen a lot of amazing things manifest within that incense. They kind of cloak themselves with it to a certain extent and take on form. So there's a lot of different mediums for them to be able to manifest within your incense, definitely being one of the key elements.
It's good to bring it, because one of the things I enjoy doing, because I do record a lot of my rituals, like for clients or for my own purposes, I like to record them. And one of the benefits of that is I do catch, um, occasional oddities, and I do catch shapes in the smoke, and I do catch things. Now, I've found for
Right.
me, I live for those poltergeist moments. I live for the knock on the wall. I live for the dishes settling in the drain rack. I
Oh
live
yeah.
for that. And I mean, yeah, you can get a physical apparition. I'm not going to say you can't. And I've actually experienced things that they're so real you could touch them. I mean, it's so hard. But usually it's at a distance. Like
Oh yeah.
I'll be outside doing an outdoor ritual, and I'll see, is that a person standing there? And then I'll see it run across. I'm like, holy shit, that was some. What was that? That wasn't a person. People don't run that way. That kind of stuff.
Right.
And then, but
Yeah. Right.
like in my own home, usually, I'm aware of the difference between a physical and a psychic projection, so to speak. I can usually tell, like, you can tell, a
Sure.
lot of people expect it to be fireworks and like the movies, and like, the chair is going to shoot across the room. And I'm not saying it doesn't happen. I'm just saying, don't
Right.
let
Right.
it be what it is. Don't expect. But the more manifestation mediums that you can provide, smoke, fire, sound, water. I even use this curtain. Okay, many people don't realize, if you watch this curtain every once in a while, it hasn't happened often. That's like very rare, but every once in a while you'll see the curtain, like, and there's nothing causing that. And I don't call it
Sure.
out, because people will say, "Oh, you just had a
Right.
fan." And I'm like, I'm not going to call that out, because that's something where that's so easy to fake. I like it to be something that's harder to fake before I point it
Right.
out. But the more manifestation mediums you create in your environment, and the more aware you are during your ritual, you can have some pretty interesting experiences. Not just the shapes of the smoke, but where they blow on your altar. Almost like a pendulum, like using the smoke almost like a pendulum. You can ask questions: does it flow towards one candle or the other one? Flames, the way that they
Sure.
they'll dance and manifest. They'll grow or they'll shrink. I've had fire. I've got it on video. I'm actually gonna put some video. I'm actually put some pictures of it at some point on my Facebook. Shooting 3, 4, 5 feet out of the cauldron. Like, to the point where I'm like, do I need to get my fire extinguisher going? You know, and people that don't play with this stuff.
I've seen candles.
What's that?
Just the
Yeah,
flame will extend. I've had it where just the flame itself is completely unnatural, where it's never, and it'll extend itself up to like, almost 12 inches.
Mhm.
And it's very, very interesting.
Especially when it holds.
It's interesting though, what's that?
No, especially like when it holds like a shape or something, especially like that's really cool. Like what you're saying, when you get like that tendril or that growth
Right.
that'll happen and it'll stay there. Sometimes it'll flicker, but yeah, it's pretty cool.
Um, Speaking of like what to expect from ritual or from invocation, a big topic that I try to really instill with people that I work with, that you'll read a book notorious for this, and they'll have 30 legions, having trumpets, and there's lightning, and I've never experienced anything like this. I'm not saying that the author or authors of said book have not, and that comes back to like an individual experience with magic. But someone else experiences that doesn't necessarily mean that you should expect to. And I often will say, don't expect anything. Suspend belief or disbelief or expectation. Do the work and see what comes through. Because if you're expecting a certain reaction or a certain result or manifestation, you might miss what's actually coming through. And that's so important, because there's their own filters that they work through. Even within my own works, I say, look, this is the work, but it's template. Use it, work with it until you're comfortable with it, but then add your own elements, subtract some things, not all, some things are pretty important, but mostly add in your own elements. Don't do my magic, do your magic. This stuff's here for you. And that's the thing I think that most it's missing from so many grimoires or magical works, is that expect to have the same exact result as the next person. And it's the same as being on a spiritual path. Some people are better at things than others. Some people have natural abilities ahead on the path than others, but you can't compare yourself to another person. It's a very personalized and individualistic path and situation. It's very unique.
Whenever you see an accomplished sorcerer, sorceress, whatever, that moment is always after they have put the books down, put the studies down, and became their own source of power and accomplishment. And that doesn't mean they don't study anymore, but it means when they, like you said, when they do their own magic, and at that point. And we got a couple of people I got to give a shout out to. We got Darkness NC Carolina. That's our buddy JB Perry. He's one of the admins at Dark Sorcery. Hey, JB Perry. We probably should have had John tonight if you're available. Maybe we'll give you a seat, but we'll see. And we have Behemoth X. My friend Behemoth is if you guys aren't subbed to him, please sub to him. I know that Kane and Behemoth are good friends and everything too, and it's really cool. He likes to show a lot of support to people in the community, and we really value So and so another thing you brought up, which to me is really cool, is like part of it is learning to interpret what's in like the Goetia or whatever system you're using. Some of the descriptions are almost codified. So in other words, like when it says build walls, like does that mean that they build the wall of a house? Well, probably not. It's a symbol of what walls do. What walls do, they protect you, they hold things in, they hold things out. When it says like King Paymon's famous for having big trumpet blasts and like a parade and everything else, that's that can be, like you said, that can be what is experienced. For me, the first time I conjured and called to him, he came through. Instead of trumpets, it was like, you've probably heard of was it English motherfucker, can you speak it, from what was that, what movie was that, you know what I'm talking about, somebody knows what I'm talking about. But instead of that, it was King Paymon, motherfucker, can you dig it, like that kind of thing. I'm like, what the hell, where did that come from? It was just a thought that came into my head, but it came in loud, if that makes sense. If you ever think a thought, like a thought is loud, so it wasn't something loud. It wasn't like a train went by. It was just in my head, and I didn't do that on purpose. It was just, no, motherfucker, can you dig it? I was like, what the heck? Why would he do that? And then I realized, Like that's part of his personality, is he can come through as one way, as another way. And that was how he was presenting himself to me,
uh,
as kind of a boisterous, friendly, and then he's mellowed out after that.
that's so important, you know, is that when people look at doing magical rituals, it's, you know, go out, lay the triangle out, say the evocation, you know, make the offering, and then spirit comes and it looks like this and it does that, happens. It's so, it's not like that. It doesn't work like that, you know. And one of the elements that out of magic, and I hate that word. I hate magic. I think people know that. I really hate the word, you know. But anyway,
I use it if you have to, but yeah, I hear you.
yeah, exactly. I don't place it with, so you know. But
even I don't. Like I'll still just use it. You know, it's like, you know.
But it's like, what they don't understand, why didn't the spirit show up, or why didn't it do this or that, or why did it appear this way, or like you said, it didn't, you know, it said, you know, certainly that we're not recorded, or other people haven't experienced, or, you know, why was it just like the book said? And you have to understand that, like, with when dealing with spirits, it's not a mechanical process. You know, there's a variation there that the spirit is a being with choices. It can choose to be female, it can choose to be male, it can choose to be whatever form it chooses to. It can choose not to show up whatsoever in any form, which I've had happen. I've gone into rites, I felt nothing. I felt nothing. I'm thinking, all right, so it made, obviously the spirit is busy, or something else is going on. It's just, I didn't feel it. But, you know, I finished, and I got the result regardless. You know, a few days later, it manifested. And it goes to show that they have a choice. You know, there's a being there that can choose how it wants to or not, to how to manifest or not, or how to appear or interact with you in a book. You know, and again, that comes down to one's personal filters as well. But it can be a range of things, and I always, I guess, don't expect this or that. Just do the work and accept what comes through. And that's, again, that's something that's just not talked about much.
I mean, you know, I've had, as you well know, I've had rites that were not successful. There's been rites where I've called to the spirit, and it wasn't just because I didn't get any experience. Like they were actually preventing me from finishing the rite, or they were causing little hangups and bumbles and weird things from happening. So don't mistake silence for failure. You'll know, like in my opinion, when you fail.
No.
Like you'll know when you're doing it wrong. And
Right.
you know, so
Right.
like that builds on what you're saying, because it's one of the earlier things that I tell people is do the right, whether you get contact or not. Finish what you're doing, say every line of the invocation, you know, tell them what you want, make sure that your intentions are declared, and give them their reward as if they showed up. Treat them with respect, because maybe you're distracted, or maybe they're distracted, or maybe they just sent one of
Right.
their many legions to watch you, and they're going to report on what you said. So there is
Right.
that very important component. And let's not forget that a lot of the time, not always, but a lot of the time, when we work with a spirit to do something in ritual, so like say we're calling on King Person to help us get rich or whatever it might be. Yes, the spirit can do a lot for you. Sometimes they'll do it all for you. Sometimes the very act of calling to that spirit, the spirit's just sitting there going like, you know, just by calling me, you've already set the energy in motion. I'm just going to just give it my seal of approval. You've already done it with your own subconscious. You've already done it by your intention. You're already making it happen because
Right.
you're charmed, you're blessed. So you have to proceed as if it's doing that. You have to have that belief, because that fuels so much of it. Even if the
You say
spirit doesn't.
what though? You know, interesting point, but it's also, you know, sometimes people will set up to do a rite, and before they do the rite, they'll the the benefits. They'll start getting what it is that they set out to get already. It'll start in their lives, and I always tell them, you know, look, do the rite anyway. you know, it's like time is not linear as we think it is. And so even though you're or getting the result, it doesn't mean you don't need to go through with the rite and kind of close that circuit. You know, and it's really important to be able to do that. Some people will they'll start getting the results. They won't do the rite, but it'll fall apart essentially within a few days. It usually does not go well. You really need to be able, even though you're getting the result, you really need to be able to go through and finish that. Like I said, I call it like completing the circle, or loop it, you know, connecting the loop. So it connects that. It works. Like I said, even though you're not, it's kind of works. Time is very strange when it works, especially with spirits and dealing with ritual. You know, with like Crowley, he was going to be doing the rite of Aphra in the Belascon house, and he started actually seeing these manifestations appear days before he went over. You know, even over them. You know, and you know, he realized that. Well, like you said, the spirits already are aware that you are wanting to work with them. I want to do pacts. I'm already, like I talked to them about it. I said, you know, look, the spirit is already aware that you're wanting to do this. Doesn't mean you don't have to do the pact, but be on board. They're already aware. So, you know, it's really kind of a formal situation when you go into rite a lot of the times to complete that and make a formalization out of it.
That I often say to Waylon, you have to perform magic as if it's a celebration of a thing that's already done or more or less in motion. I like to say already done, not just because you're looking at it in a positive light, but because if you are properly aligning yourself with your correct and true intention, you kind of are already doing it. You know, you've already put out the energy, the waves of reality are already moving that way. So you're really, it's almost like more of a version of divination. If anything, you know it's coming already. That's one of the reasons why you're doing it. And it's kind of like you and I will joke, you'll have these synchronistic moments where it's almost like we knew this was going to happen. Like tonight, I had no idea that most of the Dark Source wouldn't be available and that you would be and everything else. And I just, you know, I had asked you at the same time I had asked them, and everybody's like, oh, I'm not feeling well. I can't make it. I got things going on. You know, which doesn't bother me. I don't mind running the stream alone, but I'm like, why not ask Kane? We were just talking tonight. Let's see. So was that magic? No, that wasn't.
It's crazy. Yeah, I mean, we were literally just talking about doing more of these, and then you know, you hey, you want to go on in 30, and I was like, let me get set up. But you know, but it manifested just as we were talking a few minutes, essentially. So yeah.
That's like what I say when, you know, when you get to a certain level, it's like you're living a charmed life. And most people don't get this reference, but there's an old movie called Dragon Slayer, which I love. It's one of my favorite movies of all time.
I love, yeah.
I'll give the ending away a little bit, but after everything that happens, he loses the stone that's been letting him do all his magic, and he's kind of depressed. And they're walking along trying to go home, and the girl is like, "Oh, what's the matter? You blah blah blah." He's like, "No, I just wish we had a horse." Now, normally he would have held the stone and done some bibbidi bobbidi and made the horse appear. Instead, it was just his wish, just his intention to have a horse, just made it manifest for them instantly on the field. That is what, when you get to a certain point in magic, that kind of, in my life, is what it's like. You don't, this is a prop, this whole thing. This is a show. This is a toy.
Like I was saying, just like I was saying, right?
So, I mean, it does get, like, I know it sounds weird to say that. I know it sounds kooky. It sounds new agey. But it really is like that. And the spirits, when you have a connection to them, again, I will use this for a first contact with the spirit, or when I want to make a fuss and really give them some extra love and attention. Most of the time, I'll just be at work going, Malthus, what should I do about this? You know, oh, Lucifer, what can you answer this question for me? And sometimes they will hit me with a rapture that brings tears to my eyes and makes me fall to my knees while I'm supposed to be working. So it's kind of probably bad for business. But
so much of spirit contact comes outside of her. Although the story I'm about to say actually did happen in the ritual chamber, but or outside of ritual, like yes, flipping. I had an original first edition of the Crowley Goetia. And the numbers on the seals don't match up. with the page numbers is what they're supposed to, and it's weird. It's just the way it's printed. So you kind of have to flip through the book and find the spirit that you're looking for. And it was completely unexpected. I was there. It was by myself. I don't believe anybody was even home. And I'm looking. Okay, I'm gonna look through this and find which spirit. And clear as day, right in my ear, I heard it. I heard the spirit say, and it's a little unnerving at times because you're not expecting it, you know. But it was like, oh, okay. And I turned 4, and sure enough, that was the exact spirit. It happened to be Murmur, actually. And since then, I've actually had a very close connection with that particular spirit. It's also really interesting because completely outside of rites, outside of evocation, the spirit, again, they're aware that you are working with them or you know, wanting to have that interaction with them, and they can choose to be there. You know, it shows. Look, I'm aware of you wanting to find information about me or work with me or whatever it was. They're on board. They're already there.
Yeah. Some spirits, like for me, Azazel, I'm not sure if he's like this for everybody. I know some people have had some, you know, good experiences. Some people have had some mixed experiences. I know for me, Azazel does not like to put on any kind of, you know, any kind of show. Like it seems like some spirits are eager to like rattle my walls. Like they'll knock on my walls. They'll make my table. They'll make the candles. They'll make, you know, Malthus loves making my cauldron fire blaze high and put a blue light over me on videos because it's just like what he does. The reflection causes the blue light. Others, Azazel, I'll be like, can you give me a sign? And that's the quickest way to make him disappear. He does not like to do that. And you know, I was talking with JB Perry actually earlier today because I had just worked with Marbas for the first time to help a friend of mine who, you know, hopefully will be watching this stream tonight. And, you know, he and I are of the similar mind that there's a lot of spirits that people don't work with. Now, Marbas people do work with, but he's one of the, you know, slightly lower, less used spirits in the Glacier. And there's a lot of spirits nobody touches very often, if at all. And I think that that's kind of a shame. I think there's a lot of potential in those. And so when we're talking about like these other spirits, there's a lot of spirits that nobody touches. But one of the things I'd like to you know put out there is you don't have to just work with goetic spirits. You don't have to work with any of those. I got a familiar, which I'm not even going to say it's a familiar anymore. It was a spirit that was introduced to me by King Paimon that is not in any literature. It's not in anywhere. It's a personal spirit that has come to me. You should all,
Sure.
if you're practicing, especially, you know, demon sorcery or spiritualism or any of that kind of stuff, the way we're talking in this video cast, you will get, you know, other spirits that will want to interact with you. And not all spirits will interact with you the same way, and they will not all interact with you necessarily in a good way. You might not have a good,
No.
you know, relationship with spirits that are common. You know, some people just, there's nothing wrong with them. But they just, you don't jive very well. You know, it's
Right.
normal.
And again, the factor that people aren't taking into consideration, you know, is that there's an actual personality there,
Yes.
and it may not, like you said, it may not work.
And it could be that, like, because Behemoth was just saying that he's never had that. He calls it a problem with his Azazel. You know, he gets, you know, physical manifestation with his Azazel. For me, he might just not like that part of me. Maybe he sees that I'm asking too many questions, or maybe he feels like I'm pushing a boundary that he has, or maybe it's just we don't see completely eye to eye and we don't know it because it's never been communicated clearly. He still works with me, but it may not always be the best. And there's other spirits, and I'm not ashamed to bring that up. You know, a lot of people will say like, "Oh, I have never had this problem." Never had. That's fine. Some people don't work, but sooner or later you're going to run into a spirit that you don't necessarily have a connection to, and you just say, well, we're not enemies, we'll just not work with each other. It's really not that hard. I mean, I don't work with everybody that I meet. You know, why would it be any different?
That's exactly right. There is a personality there, and it may not choose to for whatever reason. You know, we may not know why. You know, but there are, you know, biases or connections that are made or established that just simply occur. And that's, again, you know, like why I say, you know, don't compare your magic or progress or lack thereof with somebody else's.
Yeah.
This is again your own personal path and journey through this. And it should be taken that way.
Someone just asked a question. They said, "How do we know for sure the spirit is who they say they are?" I'm going to let you answer that first if you want, because I think that's kind of there's many ways to answer that question, but I'll let you go first.
I've never really had an issue with that. It seems like they you get used to every spiritual system, whether it be Goetic or working with Egyptian gods or the Voodoo, Loa, or like it just whatever pantheon or group of spirits you work with, feel to them, and you start to understand that. Obviously, if you're calling up something new, you don't really get that option or that luxury. You start to establish something, you definitely start to get like that kind of feeling about them. They have this like certain energy source to them. Like when I'm working with Egyptian god, like I'm really tiny, like an ant, And of course, this is just my personal interpretation of this. It may not for else. They might have a completely different experience, but that's what happens every time. Spirits that come through, I mean, the way I do evocation is I would either in salt or on a piece of paper, I'll paint the sigil or whatever. Sigils are really important in magic, I believe, as personal of the spirit. It definitely, they connect with that. To me, it's like their fingerprint or something. It definitely personally distinguishes them from other spirits and is like, it's like their name. And so like when you're specifically calling that spirit, and you've got the I always put it within the triangle, the sigil within the triangle, and you're working with that that spirit is again aware of you, been aware of you, wanting to do this for some time, and I believe that spirit comes through. I've never had an imposter spirit come through. Whether maybe it's the way I do rites or the connection I make with those spirits beforehand, I think that's really important on how that's established and set up. Yeah. So people like, they'll put out a circle or a triangle or whatever. There's like techniques that go into actually creating triangles and circles on the floor, So it depends on what you put into the situation. What you put into the situation is what you get out of it. And the more energy, the better result you get from that situation.
I found that
at least that's what I've
done. No, I think you hit it pretty good. I think what usually happens is when someone is first learning magic, when they're first experimenting, when they're first opening themselves to magic, they're ringing a dinner bell in the spirit world. And whether they're doing spiritual, like evocation or not, every entity that's dormant around you, that's usually just passively feeding off your energy or experiencing your reality, is suddenly like you just lit a bright light or rang a bell, because they all just, and not all of those spirits are benevolent and kind. And some are actually malevolent or angry or whatever. And what will happen to the novice is, and it doesn't happen as much as you get advanced because you build up protections. But initially, when you're first starting out, you don't know what the hell you're doing. You don't have guardians that you're aware of. You don't know how to set up your protections. You don't even know to use incense to do. You're just like I did, like an idiot when I was a kid. We just made a circle out of tape on the floor and just started calling to the universe. We did a little bit more elaborate than that, but we started just reading randomly from the Necronomicon and all this other stuff. We basically asked for it. We did everything that you're not supposed to do because we thought we were, all right, this is bullshit. We're just fucking around. Well, yeah, something will answer, and it might not be the spirit you're calling that you think you're calling, because as a novice, you are kind of just opening a door and saying, I'm here, and you will get spirits that are not your friend. And some people do this intentionally. Some people call it like a blind evocation. They'll open up their ritual chamber, they will open up their mind, whatever spirit wants to come forth, and that can be a lot of fun when you're protected and you're safe. But if you don't know what you're doing, that can be hell on wheels. Especially, you'll get a spirit sometimes, and you'll think it's a, something you think it is, and you'll later find out it wasn't, and that can be a trip too. That's happened to me when I was younger. But most of the time, once you've gotten your feet under you, once you have, whether it be a patron, a guide, or just a repertoire, a pantheon that you work with, you're now presumably, you're initiated, you're protected, so to speak. They're watching over you. So if I call to certain spirits like Malphas, um, there's no question that I'm getting Malphas, because Malphas appears to me visually more than any other way. Like, some spirits will appear to different people different ways. Some will hear voices. He always appears like an ominous shape in the corner of the room or outside. Like, I was at the movies the other day, and I was sitting there watching the movie, and I'm looking at the exit door, and he just materializes there in the darkness, and I see my version of him, which has like a crow skull, and he's just standing there staring at me. I'm like, oh, what the heck is this about? What are you trying to tell me right now? Because he doesn't always talk to me. I'll just know what he wants me to know. Other spirits are vocal, but once you start to work with your spirits, you'll know what they are. You'll know when they show up. You don't have to worry if you're getting the right one. But that develops after, like you said, you've got to develop your work with them. You've got to push the energy into it. And Waylon had actually brought something up not too long ago. It was in one of the streams a couple weeks ago, and he said, spirits that you're more likely to work with, gods, goetic entities, whatever they are, don't usually try to ask for much from you. In other words, they'll agree to a pact. They want energy for energy, but they're not trying to feed off of you, if that makes sense. They're not trying to drain you. They're not trying to hurt you. They're usually just there, and then whatever you're willing to give them, yeah, they'll ask you for things that you're not willing to give. They'll sometimes ask you for things you don't want to give, but they don't like. Yes, okay. They don't vampirize you, so to speak. They don't try to treat you in a bad way, unless you've offended them, I suppose. But I've never really had that problem. I don't seem to rub them the wrong way so that I offend them. So I would say, final answer, as a beginner, yeah, you might have that problem. It doesn't take very long to not have that problem if you're putting in your due diligence, and you're learning, and you're progressing, and you're getting your energy out there. So I'm going to ask the people in the audience, if you guys have questions, we do want to answer them. Just try to put them in caps, because people are having conversations all around, and I might not get a chance to read the questions. If I miss one, if you've already asked it, please just retype it, and give me, you put it in all caps. And if you have one specific for either one of us, like if you just want to ask Kane a question, make sure you mention their name, guys. So this way I know who's talking to who. So people are definitely chatting away in the in the comments stuff. So yeah, what have we've been doing this for, what, about an hour almost now? How long have we been here? Yeah, almost an hour. We've been doing it for a little
Been keeping track whatsoever.
while. You're just having fun.
No idea. You're going to tell me it was been 30 minutes, and I would say, okay.
Okay, so we got one. JB asked, videos of the Book of Smokeless Fire, please, please, please. That's actually, I don't know what we should talk
I
about,
know.
but we were having some discussion, weren't we? I don't know what's going to happen with any of that, but go ahead.
Yeah, as far as that goes, I'm not really focused on doing video for that, or for that book. That's not off the table for the future. Right now, I'm really focused and excited. I'm doing, Smokeless Fire 2 Into the Crucible, and I'm really just delving into that today. I just shared a little bit on my page as far as the introduction. That work is really the first book. It covered the basis as far as things go, the history. It gave all of the spirits, or the Jinn, if you will. And how to do the evocations and work with them, the different triangles. This is a little bit more, there won't be all of the 72 within this book. There's this very select few that I'm kind of honing in on with, and have done deeper rights with on like I said, deeper levels of things, and that's really what's in this particular work. So it's I'm excited about that. Videos on that situation, we'll see the table, but it's not overly planned at this point either. So I will say at this point that the future is open.
Mm-hmm. One question I have, just from from one to one, in my reading of the Book of Smokeless Fire and stuff, I see it as a manual of baneful purpose mostly. What other what else is going to be possible? Is there going to be more to the next phase? Is there going to be more path working that's not just baneful? Is there going to be more? What else is going to be coming? If unless I'm missing something that I should have seen already.
It's
What?
more like building, really getting in depth with particular spirits. It's not, it's interesting because like I wrote in there in the introduction, like I shared, like I said on my page earlier today, there is really no way to these spirits, like, and no offense to any of the goetic spirits whatsoever, none meant, but in that hierarchy, you'll help you unlock doors, find lost objects. They're there to kind of help you. Some of them, are very, very willing to do this. When you're working with these particular, though I believe it is of the same kind of history or hierarchy, it's different. And there's just real positive about this. They like I wrote, when their presence is near, darkness looks bright. These the core of chaotic spirits. It doesn't, in my opinion, there's a few others that kind of come to mind working in the clip off, but this particular family of spirits is extremely baneful. I mean, they really humanity. But what you can do is work with them in ways to work against your enemies, and channel them in ways that are beneficial. And this is one of the reasons, why I'm releasing this book, why I'm putting it to use, or people to use or utilize, is to kind of take this and strike back at things that are it's a weapon, yes. And people talk about I've had many people say, "Oh, I'm working this system, I'm working that system," and as soon as I'm done, I'm going to start working. And I'm like, no. This isn't something you work through. This is essentially having a nuclear bomb on your shelf, and when you're ready for that, if that situation arises, then you will utilize that. Now, that's not to say that there aren't, chapters or information in there that you can utilize in other rituals or in your own personal rituals or other systems. Like I said, there is a technology to that. Smokeless fire, one essentially, but it's not a system to work through. This is directly going to be Smokeless Fire 2 and Into the Crucible is directly going to be worked with Smokeless Fire 1. It's an extension of this essentially, and we'll again go in more in depth with particular experts, especially the family of Iblis. The son and daughter of Iblis, Shara and Zubaga, and that I wanted to have more of a personal path working with, and really utilize that on more of a personal. So, it's not for everybody. It's not going to be for everybody. The work is really intense, and I mean, that's something that my work is. If you ever read any of my books, I mean, I would say, well, this book is intense, but then I realize I can kind of say that about every single thing I've released. The work is there for really delve into and access these kinds of energies. Why else put the damn book out?
Yeah.
Well, so, it's
yeah. No, sorry, I was just really agreeing. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, I mean, I don't see the point in it, so it's like, this is going to be really to we've covered the bases, we've looked at the technology, we understand the situation. Now we're going to take it to a deeper level, and more personal level, with these entities.
It's kind of like a book that you put in your gun cabinet and you hope you never need it, kind of like your shotgun. That's
exactly
how I've seen the first book. So, however, the technology up in the last time we had John, the technology, the shapes, the Trinity of, Evocate, all that stuff. I mean, that's useful elsewhere. That's not just
exactly. Like I said, even though it may not be, you may not use that, you may not call upon these spirits for any that is needed. But you can take the information there and apply it to your own personal systems, or other systems that you're working with. So it's not to say.
I had luck using the Trinity of Triangles before I finally settled on my own system of doing it again, because I am so inspired by triangles, as you know. When I saw your book cover, I was like, I got to have this just so I can understand this, to see if this relates in any way to what I do. And I was already using a form of this before that. So when I saw you, and I'm like, and when I
Right.
saw what your explanation of it was, I'm like, okay, so the shapes, they have meaning. You can see a three-dimensional object popping up almost like it's a pillar. I mean, there's so much stuff going on. It almost brings the two-dimensional into three-dimensional. It's got just so much power in it.
Yes.
And I'm like, okay, so this is very useful outside of just the Black Book of Azathoth or just the Book of Smokeless Fire. It's very useful. Now we had a
Precisely.
couple of extra
Yeah.
questions. I'm gonna just go through here. Pardon me.
Okay.
Do. So Dower Duna Orlick, or Duna Ulrich, I always say that wrong. She's a good friend of ours. She says, "Are Jinn different from demons or daemons, etc.?" And I mean, that could be like a whole video all by itself. I think we could go into why it's true, why it may not feel that way for some people, but why it would be.
I can touch on it. Yeah. It's been said that there's mankind, there's angels, and I don't like the word demon,
Mhm.
but there's angels, there's demons, and then there were jinn that were created, and the jinn were created with free will. You'll find some that as has been written in the Kabbalah, or not the Kabbalah, forgive me, the Quran. Big difference.
Just a bit.
Don't mistake it. Yeah, in the Quran, that are followers of Allah, and they adhere to His works, and they, there are some, as you know from the Book of Smokeless Fire, that feel quite otherwise, and they have worked with Iblis, and they're part of that houses, or clans, if you will. The particular ones that are in Smokeless Fire are of Ta'al, and they only sinister. Like I said, they are as far as I know, the black book, but the Book of Smokeless Fire has been said to be the most evil book in the world. It's not because it talks about like killing children or things like this, being evil. It's not. That's not. In fact, even the sole purpose of the work itself. It's because of the particular entities that are worked with, and so they have their own free will. I see them as interdimensions. They're almost on a parallel plane from us, that they can interact with us, but they're on their own plane. So it's not, to me, are very much
It's
of
not
this
just that
planet.
they're
Yes,
invisible and live in bathrooms like it would say in the Quran. These are entities that are, in some ways, I've noticed, like there might be, I have to, you and I will have to do work on this. I'll have to do work on this between the shadow people that I would work with and Jinn, except I don't think they were Jinn,
well,
but there may be a connection to some similarity.
see, well, and that's the thing about a lot of my work. The Black Book of Azathoth, you're working with interdimensional alien, if you will, beings, non-terrestrial, essentially, beings. I consider non-Earth plane beings. These are also interdimensional beings. That's where I love to work, really. That's my personal preference, is working with beings that aren't essentially traditional, and accessing that forth and working with them. So I love that aspect of it. It's very Lovecraftian. It's very, and again, I made a lot. There are a lot of similarities or connections between, the actual Lovecraft's account of the Necronomicon and actual history of the Book of Smokeless Fire. Even though, that's a whole nother discussion, and people are not like, Lovecraft wrote stories and it's not real. Talk about that a whole nother on a whole nother podcast. But
I would say that, I'm of two minds of this. I think that on the one hand, humanity has a big hang up with applying materialistic divisions to the spirit world. What I mean by that is we try to identify spirits by name, appearance, blah 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 blah, when they don't have these things in that.
right,
And there are entities you could classify as different. Sometimes I joke around and say power levels, like it's a like a comic book or something. That's not
right,
fair either. But my point is that we have to, when we're doing this, I like to use the current system of thought, and I mean current as a noun. There are currents in magic, and these currents each have their
yes,
own truths, and they may conflict. And when you're working within a current, you apply that current as if it's 110% the only truth there is while you're using it, in my opinion. Then you can shift. You have to be able to shift if you want to use multiple currents. So when you're working in the Lovecraftian current, you have to, in your mind, accept that these are alien entities from another dimension, basically. When you're working with Jinn, you have to accept for at least a little while that Judeo-Christian Orient, actually Zoroastrian, I believe, is where it really comes from. The Jinn, much older than that, but I could be wrong. That's just what I remember. But you have to be in tune with these other currents while you work with them. When you work with, the Watchers, when you work with Azazel, when you work with the Goetic. Now, some people have actually called the Goetic spirits Jinn as well. Let's not forget that they've been called Jinn in different documents as well. So the problem arises.
Well, there's a direct correlation.
Sorry.
There's a direct correlation, obviously.
Yeah,
but.
And I think that a lot of the times people want to, almost like it's a biology class, they want to sort of like put spirits in boxes, and they want to categorize them as if they're a biological life form. When I don't think that really serves in every case. Some cases, yes. And I think there is a distinction between, some entities like the shadow people that I'm talking about seem to be very near to the material plane in a way that the Goetic spirits are not. They seem to be anchored to our material plane in that they do seem to like objects, places, and things, almost like kami spirits in Japanese or other things. They almost can have a presence that is local oriented. There can be a shadow being that likes your house. There can be, that kind of thing. Whereas other spirits are more non-local. They're more everywhere, so to speak. Like King Paimon is everywhere. You say, if you call on King Paimon in Japan right now, you'll get something that's King Paimon like, if not King Paimon exactly. So, and then I can do it 2 minutes later and he'll appear for me. They're non-local. Whereas some of these entities, I think, have a location that is more real. Now, I think Jinn are closer to that Goetic level where you can call them anywhere and they can appear. But I also feel like a lot of people have forgotten that in the past, a lot of the older occultists really believed that different regions had spirits that were more readily available. So like Astaroth was believed to be in America, whereas Lucifer, I believe, was I think it was Europe, and Beelzebub. Yeah. So they had different places that they were strung at. But again, I think a problem people get into is they want to classify things in a almost biological way, like they want to differentiate them.
Right.
But at the same time, as much as I kind of poo-poo that, I like the idea of currents. You really should, while you're working with them, just go with exactly what is said. If you don't want to do Judeo-Christian stuff, that's fine, because I agree with that. I don't like using Solomon's methods that are listed in the Megton or the isolation. But that doesn't mean that I ignore the lore, so to speak. So like with Lucifer, I put this in my book a lot, where I explain, Lucifer, as we understand him today, didn't exist historically until about, the 3rd or 4th century. So where did this person come from? Was he always there in a different form? And some would say yes, and then they would say no. And so what I say is, instead of trying to find out who Lucifer was in Sumerian times, which you can do that, that's fun. Instead of that, if you like or feel connection to the Paradise Lost Lucifer, use that. Why split hairs? That is the form that's speaking to you. Use that, and don't try to classify them too much. I think that can cause a lot of problems for people and distractions. So it's almost like the quickest way to end a miracle is to question. Ethan Ross asked,
This is yeah.
Ethan Ross asks, have you used any of the Jinn for more traditional benevolent goals? And I'm pretty sure that was directed directly at you, Kane, because I can't really answer that question that way, because I've never. Hopefully, I will be working with them more now that you and I are going to be doing some things together. But yeah, what's going on? What would you say? Have you used them for any more traditional benevolent?
Can you repeat the question?
Sorry.
Use them for traditional what?
Have you used any of the Jinn for more traditional benevolent goals?
I first of all, I don't use spirits. I kind of really that's distasteful to me. I really it rubs me the wrong way when I hear that. I work with spirits. I do not use spirits. Um, when you say beneficial, I suppose, or not baneful, but benevolent, it's yes, you can use. I mean, again, or you work with them in a way that, yeah, they are sinister. You know, they're not going to help you per se, but if you have the same goals in mind, you can align with them to accomplish a task or a common goal. So that's what you're really trying to do with these particular entities,
I
these
guess
particular gen.
the way I would read into it, especially the way you put it, I mean, you didn't say this in your book, but the way you describe them, they're mercenary, they're sinister, they don't like humanity or whatever. It's almost like
No,
asking a hitman to do your laundry for you. You know, it's like is that really an appropriate task? You know, for these spirits. So it's like trying to use them for a benevolent end. I guess it depends on how you want to do it. So if you know, like, I guess a child molester, and you want to use, you know, the book of smokeless fire to exact justice where justice is not being served, I guess that is an application that would be, to mind of some people, benevolent. I guess, is that an appropriate way to look at it?
I mean, yeah, absolutely, absolutely. You know, sure. You know, but don't be the first book you go to, or hey, some guy cut me off on the highway. Fuck it. You know, let's call upon the Jinn to take this
Mm-hmm.
dude out. You know, because it's just that's it really and that to me personally that goes hand in hand with like any painful right or not to do for people. It really has to be justified. I really don't just, pop off curses and grab the book of smokeless fire first before anything else. Like it really has to be deserved. And I had somebody the other day, to utilize the work, and instead I had him, work us in a different way. And he actually got more benefit from that situation. So it's like, definitely, consider this situation carefully before you just
Yeah.
grab the book off the shelf and go to town. In my opinion, my personal reality, it really has to be a justified situation.
And not only that, I mean, because Waylon and I did a really good stream not too long ago. Actually, it was a while ago, on baneful magic. And two things immediately pop up in my head. One, at least in my experience, for baneful magic to work, you have to be willing to do the thing that you're wanting done if there was no repercussions. So there's, you need to be willing to pull the trigger. You need to be willing to do
Right.
whatever damage it is in real life, face to face, looking them in the eye before it's really going to be effective. Chances are, unless you're a total maniac psychopath, you're not going to want to curse someone over mundane, stupid things. You've got to have a really good reason. Everyone that I have cursed, I would gladly, if I thought I could get away with it, and I'll just leave it at that. You know what I'm saying? I'm not going to incriminate, but
Right.
that's it. And if you don't have that mentality, I wouldn't pick up any baneful thing, let alone the Book of Smokeless Fire. Now, if again,
Right. It's that serious.
you have to have that seriousness. And part two of that is anybody that inspires that much from you has, in a sense, they haven't done it, but you have become attached to them. You have a weakness now because of them. And this is another reason why I try to refrain from doing baneful magic without a really good reason. Because if I am using baneful magic against people, that means I am attached to their destruction. I'm attached to the pain they're causing me. Otherwise, I wouldn't be doing it. You know what I'm saying? So in a way, they're weakening me. They're making me the weak one because I
Right.
can't solve the problem through other means.
Right.
And I often say it like this. I made a meme a long time ago, and I don't think many people realize I made it, but it was a meme of a demon basically saying, you have access to demons and gods and all these things that can give you ascension to be higher than the throne of God, and you waste this on cursing people that said something mean to you on Facebook, and stuff like that. You have the
Right.
power through these spirits to rise up and, like, fuck your haters. Like I had some people didn't like me a while ago, and I said, You've heard of me, and I've never heard of you. You know, that tells you who's important in this equation. So
you know, it's. Oh, go ahead. It's sorry.
no, that's I would probably leave it right there because, and I think you were smiling and laughing, so you probably have something good to add. But that's pretty much really what it is. That's really what it is. You know, and the Book of Smokeless Fire. That's why I say you put it in your gun cabinet for us good old boys with guns. You treat it like that. That is a, you know, not just someone ran over your dog. I mean, they looked you in the eye and backed over your dog. That's when you
Right.
whip that out. That's what it's for.
Right. Right. Exactly. Exactly. You know, though, when rites, I have to always like have to ask, I want to do these kind of baneful rites. When you do a baneful rite, I see it as a timeline, and you're anchoring yourself in the past, yourself, in a situation that had occurred, and you're putting a lot of energy into that past. And so, if you want to do that, or do you want to now move forward?
Yeah.
And so you have to really contemplate on where you want to put your energy and where you want to focus that. You want to leave this behind and focus on branching out and new ways to go, or do but some people, and it's not necessarily about others. Like, as I've written about, there's sometimes you have to have an act of completion in order to be able to walk away and to let go. So that play, so but it's like really, essentially all of this kind of breaks down to really think about what it is you want, what you're willing to do, and where you want to put your energy when you're working with baneful, energy or intent. Is it just, and to what degree or what extent? There's a lot, but it comes down to one's personal belief system, ethics, morality. So it to each their own in that, and it goes back to another thing where no one can say that your magic is wrong, your ideology is wrong, because it is your own, and magic is personalized. So it's a difficult thing to kind of compare or to say across the board. It comes down to each one of us what we consider evil or bad, and that there is no constant measure against that is within each of us. So it really comes down to measuring these things against our own systems, kind of the if you will.
The other thing you mentioned that's important, and it's actually just kind of at the core of every kind of magic, in my opinion, is when you're anchoring yourself in the past, right? That's also another way of saying that when we do any kind of magic, one of the last things you want to do is dwell on the result. You want to do the magic and forget about it. Just let it go.
Yes.
Well, baneful magic, almost nobody does that unless they really know what they're doing. Because, and when I say that, I mean, it's almost like for baneful magic to work well, you have to hire somebody. Because the problem I've found is, yes, you have all the rage and anger you can pour into it, and that empowers it. But then you're going to be checking on that every other day. You're going to be like, I hate this motherfucker. Is he dead yet? And when he's not dead, it's going to bother you. And you're going to be pulling that energy back into yourself constantly. It's never going to fly. Second of all, magic tends to follow our truest intention. In fact, it always does. Your truest intention is not always to cause harm. In fact, most of the time, again, unless you're a true psychopath who that's really your just life goal is to hurt people, is to end the conflict, is to end the pain that you're experiencing, is to get through it, to grow from it, whatever.
Right.
And so when someone asks me for something baneful, and most of the time I classify love magic as baneful, because most people that ask for love magic, they're not asking for make me pretty or help me find somebody. It's my ex left me and I can't live without them. And please, please, please. And no, I don't care what it costs. Just bring them back no matter what. And I say, you don't love them then, obviously, or else you'd let them go on their way. You wouldn't be trying to, because basically you're going to have to destroy their will to bring them back to you. And what's that going to require? How much damage are you willing
There's
to do?
a lot of great, there's so many gray areas in that situation.
Yeah, there's so many variables, and you've got to really hurt them for that. And so now, are you willing to just let them go? Because if you're not, it's not going to work then either. Because you're going to be so busy being attached to them, it's never going to let that intention out. So your real intention you need to be aware of, and if your real intention might simply be to remove them from your life, um, It can really just kind of um, distract you from what your true intention is. So, I will say the one or two people I've cursed in recent memory have gotten both barrels. They've been fucked from hell to back recently. Didn't need Jinn to do it because it's just they have it coming. They're an easy target. We're talking like borderline pedophiles. We're talking like
Right.
people who just you don't even have to do it, and life is going to stomp on them anyway. But I just so but that gave me catharsis. Every time that they talk to me about something bad that happened to them, I go, "Oh, you poor baby. Maybe you shouldn't be an asshole." That kind of thing. It's
Right.
and if anything, maybe I didn't do it. Maybe nothing that I did is really doing anything, except it's giving me that catharsis to just let go and just let the jackass have their life and ignore them. So magic is so easy and complicated at the same time, isn't it? It doesn't have to be like a vending machine that you just get,
It's complicated in its
Yeah.
simplicity. I've said that so
Yeah.
many times. It's like it's simplicity. Yeah.
So we got some more questions. Let me see. This one I'm not sure any of us can really answer. I think it's more of an opinion question, and it's not really something I have much experience with. Lolana Sine asks, "Can I ask, do you think VK Johannem UPG rituals to all these newly discovered spirits are authentic? He's calling new spirits I've never heard of, and his ends, but I like it. It resonates with me." Well, I'm going to start with the last part of that. If it resonates with
I,
you, use it. Do whatever you want. I mean,
I,
that's number one. If it's resonating with you, you're getting
right.
results. Done. That's it. You don't need to ask any more questions, honestly. Everything else about V. Johannem, I don't have anything, against the guy. I think he does interesting work. I've been following him for a while. I'd probably be honored to have him on the show and talk to him. He seems like a really nice guy. His work is very, very well respected. I haven't used it really. He's got his own ends for a lot of things, and I think that's a very valid approach. I think that most people, when they work with spirits, after a while, they'll get their own tricks, be it ends, be it sigils, be it names, be it visualizations. And I think that if it's working for him and the people who like his work, then who am I ever to say otherwise? I would never say something.
Precise.
Yeah, I mean,
Precise. That's again, it comes down to the individual. Yeah. I always say, no one can tell you you're doing your magic wrong.
Exactly.
Like that, it's ridiculous. So if this is working for him, and other people are getting results, then more power to them. I won't get into, if this person's real, isn't real. It's really a moot point. If they're getting results and others are getting results, then that's all there really is to it.
Yeah.
So, again, who am I to, no, I'm definitely, I don't believe in masters, and so I'm no master. I'm always learning and whatnot. So, there's a standpoint of absolute, or of the absolute, and say, no, this is right, this is wrong. No, it doesn't work that way, So again, it's a realistic path. If people are getting results, then yeah, it works, and that comes back down to the nature of reality, and that's a whole conversation. So,
yeah,
if it's working, awesome.
What is
I've
that
got nothing
moment?
personal.
Sorry, what'd you say?
I said, if it's working, more power to you. I have nothing personal for or against, the man himself. So yeah.
And I would say
I say, try it out. If it works for you, excellent. If it doesn't, find something else. As I say with my own work, if this works for you, if it doesn't, find something that works for you. It's pretty basic. It doesn't have to be that complicated.
No, I mean, you have people who can mix whatever system they want, and it works for them. I mean, I'm living proof. I mix elements of Zen. I mix elements of Zen with demon sorcery, and it works for me very well. And it's working for a lot of other people now too. But I think,
it's using technology that works and combining it into a system that works.
And I think a lot of people, like I said earlier on in this stream, I usually I like to watch people who are learning, and I haven't had much time to do that, but in the time that I've had that chance is, I've noticed that people have that breakthrough moment. I know one person in particular had an amazing one, and he's not in the stream right now, but I'd give him a shout out if he was. People have had that amazing breakthrough moment where they realize that they're the ones in control of the whole show, that when they find their system, it's not because they've learned something as much as They've gotten rid of their lack of, or should I say, they've gotten rid of the things that are distracting them from the truth about what they can do. So, once
We
they
are
center
our own,
themselves, what's that?
we are our own worst enemy. The biggest thing, the biggest challenge in any magician's path is themselves.
Yeah. And you have to center yourself as the authority of your magic system. I've known people, and I still know people, I should say, who will use Marvel superhero characters as stand-ins for gods and entities. Yes, Ender, like basic chaos magic. Yeah, I don't know if you're saying that to me, but yeah. They will use all kinds of stuff, and it works for them. And again, who are we to say if it's working for you? If you say, bibbity bobbity boo, and you get your result, I would be a jerk. Not just a jerk. I would be missing the point if I criticize that. I might laugh at it, but I'm not going to criticize it.
Or Hindu saying, but what it is that there's many different paths up to the summit of the mountain, but it's the fool that runs around everybody that are going the wrong way. He never ascends.
He never does.
There's many different ways. And again, we're all on our own separate path. And again, we all wearing to this guy or that guy. Is this real? Is that, does that work for, it's such a big subject. And it really, again, it comes down, read the introduction to the Book of Azathoth and it'll clear things up. But it really comes down to what reality is to the individual. Just essentially, if you want to go down the rabbit hole, that's where you're going to end up at. So essentially, nothing is real. All is permitted.
All is permitted. It's so true. It is all very subjective. It's one of the things that I talk about again in my book. I keep bringing that up, but it's all in there, so it's worth reading. How subjective reality is, and some people will disagree with this, but I would say that that's your subjective truth. So, subjective reality contains everything else. Even the objective is contained within the subjective. And I might call you a maniac, right? But that doesn't mean that I'm right. You might be the one who's really experiencing what you say you're experiencing. And I often use the example of, someone will say, well, I know a magic spell that will let me fly. And I will say, well, I don't believe you. I'm going to test it. You jump off the roof and I'm going to watch you fly. Well, in your subjective reality, you're going to run towards the edge of that roof and you're going to jump. And in my subjective reality, you're going to run towards the edge of that roof and you're going to jump. We're both creating and experiencing our own subjective interaction. That I think you've called it the cooperative reality matrix or something like that. When that person goes for that, matrix. Something like that. It was in one of your, I can't remember the wording, but it was something like that. And they run, so I'll watch you running towards the edge of the roof, and you'll be running and you'll jump. In your reality, you might take off and fly off into the clouds. And in my reality, you fall down dead splat and you're gone. Right. Because we are both masters of our own reality in our own way, you've basically just went off into your own timeline and stopped existing in mine.
Right.
You're still out there. You're still in your bubble of reality, and I'm still in my bubble of reality. But so it's all going to match up in the end. It's all going to make sense to both of us in the end. You're going to be flying around, and I'm going to die of a heart attack because I saw you flying or something. You know what I mean? So we'll be separated at that point, potentially. And this is obviously circular logic. If you were to do this in a rhetoric class, they'd slap you and say, well, that's sophistry. That's a circular argument. But all of reality appears to be a circular argument when you really pare it down to its brass tacks, because you can't prove anything outside of your own experience to anyone but yourself. I can't prove to you I exist. You can't prove to me you exist. I can't even prove that you exist. You could be a figment of my imagination. What's that?
I said solipsism as its finest.
It's solipsism weaponized. Weaponized solipsism is basically magic, I guess you could say.
Awesome.
So we've been going for a little bit here. Let's see. Yeah, we've been going for long enough. It's been about an hour and a half. Let's give everybody a chance. If you guys got one more question, a couple more questions, please put them in caps. I'll give you a few minutes. Otherwise, we're going to start, I think, wrapping up. What do you think, Kane? Do you have anything else you want to bring up or talk about before we? I'm sorry, you broke up again.
I was just saying, yeah, that sounds good. I'm getting hungry.
So we really appreciate everybody coming out tonight, and it was a lot of fun. Kane and I are going to be doing some more stuff soon. We're going to be on again this week sometime. I think Tuesday night we're aiming for, either on his channel or mine. So we'll square that away this week and make announcements again soon. And I don't know, we'll just probably have another just random talk about interesting things. But if we do get it, we'll post it early in a few places so people will know it's coming. Those of you who are usually watching us on Dark Sorcery who might not be subbed to me, please sub to this channel. I do most of my content here, and on Saturdays I do all my content on the Dark Sorcery channel. Obviously, come to FromTheAshesPublishing.com, because we would love to see you there. We got a newsletter you guys can get every month. We're going to be doing some interesting things with that soon, and you and I just have some stuff to talk about.
Also,
what we're going to be doing. What's that?
We got the YouTube channel. So we also got the YouTube channel that we're going to be really utilizing. It's been kind of going to breathe some life into that, so you might want to subscribe over there as well.
Yeah, in fact, you know what? Let's do this. I will put in the comments when we're done with the stream, when it lets me put comments, I'll put a comment in there for those who want it. I think, do you have it linked on the website to your YouTube channel?
I believe so. Yes. You might just want to go to the YouTube right now and check it out. I know that there's a video up there and videos that are posted that you can utilize or you can access it from. So
let me see if I can find it real quick. From the Ashes. See if I can find the actual link for you. There it is. Look at that right off the bat. So let's see. I'm going to put it in the chat here, guys, so that you guys can catch it, and then I'll put it in the comments later as well. So that should be it right there. So for those of you who aren't subbed there, go sub there. Sub me, obviously, if you aren't already. You can, if you want to support the things we're doing, if you want to support our work, From the Ashes Publishing has all our rights and stuff. My book is available there. You can find it there. Obviously, the book of Smokeless Fire is there. If you don't have that, you really definitely have to fix that. Is there anything else you want to talk? Anything else you want to mention before we give them a good night?
I think we're good. I'm just really excited to kind of be more out there and start discussing some stuff. A little bit more active in the magical community. I know, like I said, we've got some stuff lined up about, and really looking forward to the interaction with the community more.
All right.
So I think we're good.
You know what we should do? Like we're going to be doing with Dark Sorcery at some point soon. We should occasionally have up and coming people talk with you and I live during a video chat or something, or with Dark Sorcery or whatever, because I think that's a lot of fun. I like hearing from the people who are just starting to put out their content, and sometimes just have them on so they can ask us questions without having to go through the chat system. Might be fun. Like pick somebody once a month.
Absolutely,
that might be fun. So, all right, guys. Well, thanks.
Yeah,
thanks for coming. And Ender Oversoul, thank you, man. That's we will do that. We will post links in Ordo Draconis. That's another good group that I've been in for quite a while. So yeah, we'll definitely check all you guys soon. Thanks a lot for coming. And I don't know. I guess we'll see most of you Tuesday, hopefully. So we'll see you on one of these two channels, probably Kane's channel on Tuesday.
Good night, guys. Good night. It's been a pleasure.